Hello everyone, in this video we'll be learning all about percentages and we'll be working through a couple S2S examples to check our understanding of percentages. So where do we begin? First we need to understand what a percentage actually is. And percentages breaks down into two little words. Per, which means out of, and cent, which means 100. Think about century or a cent that we have as currency. So percentages literally means out of 100. And it's super important that we understand what the word percentages actually means, because when we have questions that require us to work with percentages, it makes it easier for us to understand what our answer might be. So percentages literally translates to out of 100. So we know that percentages range from 0 to 100%. There are two main things that we need to know how to do with percentages. One, that's to turn values into a percentage. So values and information that's not been given as a percentage and calculate it as a percentage. And the second thing that we need to know how to do is to calculate percentages of a given amount. So what we're going to do is we're going to work through all of these S2S examples and understand how we manipulate percentages. So the first thing that we need to know how to do is to turn values into a percentage. And this question here says that Jacob sat a test and got 72 out of 80. What is his percentage? So what we need to understand is we need to understand what our information has been given to us as. So as we can see, we have 72 out of 80. This means that this question has presented information as a fraction. So we can create our fraction from the question, which is 72 out of 80. What is his percentage? Well, to turn a fraction into a percentage, remember what we have to do is we have to multiply this fraction by 100. So we're going to put a multiplication sign here, and we're going to multiply by 100. The 100 has been put above the multiplication sign because we're multiplying our numerator by 100. Remember, if you have a whole number as a fraction is simply just that number over 1. So 100 is the same as putting 100 over 1. This is essentially what we're doing to turn our value into a percentage. So what we have to do is we have to do 72 multiplied by 100, which gets us 7,200. Remember, we want quick ways to get our answers. So when we're multiplying by a factor of 10, so anything with zeros on the end, all you have to do is you have to put that number in the front and then add how many zeros you have. So 72 multiplied by 100 is just 72 with 2 zeros. And that is going to be over 80 multiplied by 1. Anything multiplied by 1 is itself. So that's going to be over 80. Now what we need to do, because we haven't finished yet, we still have our information as a fraction. To get our answer as a percentage, we need to eventually have our fraction to be over 1, because that will give us the answer of the percentage as the numerator. So in order to get 7,200 divided by 80 to a fraction over 1, we need to divide 7,200 by 80. What we want to do is we want to find quick ways that we can use in examinations to help us calculate the answer, especially if we don't have a calculator with us, instead of trying to do this whole sum in our head or on paper and waste time. When we have two numbers that have a factor of 0, we can remove a factor of 10. So 80 can be divided by 10, so we remove 0, and so can 7,200. However, we cannot do that again because 10 cannot go into 8 now. So our new fraction is now 72 with a 0, so 720 over 8. So what we want to do now is we want to divide 720 by 8. And this is a much better sum to do than 7,200 divided by 80. If you would like, you could remove another factor. You could also remove a factor of 2 as they're both even numbers. However, the key thing with factorizing on simplifying our fractions is that you need to make sure whatever you do to the bottom, you do to the top to keep your fraction equivalent. You can stop where you feel like you can do the division. You could have done 7,200 divided by 80 if that was no problem for you, or you can continue to make it more simplified until you can do it in your head. So we can stop here. And what we're going to do is we're going to do 720 divided by 8. Remember, the whole reason why we're doing this is so that the fraction is over 1 to give us our percentage. So how many 8s can go into 7? This is 0. How many 8s can go into 72? This is 9. And how many 8s can go into 0 is just 0. And so therefore, if we put it as fractional form, we would have 90 over 1. Remember what I said earlier, anything over 1 is just the number. So 90 over 1 is 90. Therefore, Jacob got 90% on his test. So hopefully that makes sense. Now what we need to know how to do, moving on to the next question, is how to convert decimal numbers into percentages, which is much easier than the fraction work that we've just done. So it says here that Tom has completed 0.85 of his run. What is this value as a percentage? What we need to remember is we need to remember that decimal numbers are between a value of 0 to 1. However, percentages, as we went through earlier, is out of 100. Therefore, the values are 0 to 100. So the difference between them is that a percentage is simply 100 times more of the value of a decimal number. So therefore, to turn this number into a percentage, all we have to do is write out our decimal number and simply multiply it by 100. Multiplying by 100 is shifting your decimal point to the right 2 times. So we're going to shift it once and shift it again. And that gives us a total of 85%. Therefore, the value that Tom has completed, or the distance that Tom has completed, is equivalent to 85% of his run. So moving on to the second type of questions that we can get to do with percentages is to calculate percentages of a given amount. So what we've been doing is we've been turning values into percentages, but now we have to turn percentages into values. So this first example says that John says he's completed 20% of the 40 question set. How many questions does he have left to answer? So we need to make sure we are always reading our question properly. So it says that John says he's completed 20%. So what we want to calculate is we want to calculate 20% of 40. So when we are calculating percentages, remember what percentages mean. Means out of 100. So 20% means, as we read it, 20 out of 100. So 20 out of every 100. Yeah, that is exactly what 20% translates to. So us writing down 20% in order to calculate 20% of something, we're going to write it down as 20 out of 100. And the 20% that we're trying to calculate is of 40 questions. So we're going to multiply this value by 40. Remember, I've put the 40 alongside the numerator because 40 is a fraction, is equivalent to 40 over 1. And this is the multiplication that we're going to be doing. So this is equivalent to 800 over 100. So to find how many questions is equivalent to 20%, we need to do 800 divided by 100. Remember, we can simplify our fraction now by using factors of 10. So we can slash a 0 from the bottom and the top, take a 0 again from the top and the bottom, and we're left with 8 over 1. Remember, I said anything over 1 is just the number. So 20% of 40 is simply just 8 questions. Have we finished? The answer is no. Let's go back and read the question. It says, how many questions does he have left to answer? The 20% is for the amount of questions he has completed. Okay, so many people would get to this point, think the answer is 8 and move on. However, you need to make sure that you're reading the question over properly. So it's how many questions does he have left to answer? Therefore, we're calculating effectively 80% of 40. We can do this by doing the simple sum 40 minus 8, because this will give us the amount of questions he has left over. And the answer is 32. So the correct answer for the questions that he has left is 32 questions. Moving on to the next example. It says to make 10 cupcakes, 25% of a 1 kilogram bag of flour is needed. How much flour is needed to make 2 cupcakes? So this question seems pretty convoluted, pretty long-winded. However, if we follow the steps as usual, we'll be able to get to the right answer. So it says to make 10 cupcakes, 25% of a 1 kilogram bag of flour is needed. So the first step for this question is to calculate how much flour is needed to make 10 cupcakes. So in order for us to calculate this, we need to calculate what 25% of 1 kilogram is. Us working out 25% of 1 kilogram will give us our answer in kilograms. And our answer will be a decimal point or decimal number. However, if we would prefer to work with whole numbers, we can convert the 1 kilogram into grams. And that would simply be 1,000 grams. So we're going to do 25 over 100 multiplied by 1,000 over 1. That's simply 25 with 3 zeros, so that's 25,000. Over 100. Remember, we can do the simplifying by each factor of 10. We're going to do 1 here and 1 here, 1 here and 1 here. That gives us a value of 250 over 1. Therefore, 25% of 1 kilogram is equal to 250 grams. So it's 250 grams that's needed for 10 cupcakes. Therefore, the value to make 2 cupcakes is simply 250 divided by 5, because that will give us the amount of flour needed to make 2 cupcakes. So 250 divided by 5 gets us the answer of 50 grams. Therefore, 50 grams is needed to make 2 cupcakes. Okay. Hopefully we have a better understanding of how to use percentages in a range of different questions. Thank you very much for watching this video. For more services and resources, please visit www.s2sol.co.uk.